I'm Ariana Grande.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Erivo,
and you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Visit bpn.fm to discover more.
There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died.
Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams, and today we have two amazing guests. They are the directors and producers of an amazing documentary called The Show Must Go On, which chronicles the 2020 South Korean production of Cats and Phantom of the Opera, which pushed ahead through safety in a challenging time during the pandemic. So welcome, Dori Berinstein and Sammi Cannold, and thank you for joining me.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
I am excited. I thought this documentary was fascinating. I knew it was happening. I've talked to some people in the production already for this podcast, and it's just such a wild experience, and get to see the whole thing chronicled and the creative way you did it was awesome. So we'll just start right up front by saying, anybody, I think it's on Apple TV, you can get it in a lot of places now. Go watch this documentary. But before, we'll talk about that a lot, but I want to hear, because I always love to know first, everyone's history with cats. So before this documentary, what is your experience with the show? How many times have you seen it? What's your kind of theory on it in general?
Well, I'm allergic to cats. So, I have a very challenging history.
Yeah.
Very allergic to cats. But I have seen every different iteration of it. And I'm a fan of the show. And I was, I saw it on Broadway when it first came, and have seen it many times since, and love it, even though I have to take, a lot of antihistamines before I enter the theater, because it's.
When was your first one? Was it the original Broadway? Like, when was your
original
first
Broadway?
Original
Absolutely.
Broadway.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was very exciting.
Wow. Sammi, what about you?
So my dance teacher, hopefully I'm getting this right. You can correct me if I'm not. My dance teacher when I was a little kid was in the original Broadway company of Cats. So it was something that I was very aware of as like a legendary thing. And then I think I saw, I don't think it was a Broadway, I don't think it could have been a Broadway production as a kid, but I saw like a tour somewhere. And then I saw the most recent revival, but I wasn't really like a Cat's head until, 2020. And then I dove deep, and now I'm obsessed.
Okay. So who was the dance instructor, if you don't mind sharing?
Joe Cavese.
Okay. And so what age was this? Like, when was this, like, early?
Oh, I was like 4. And I just remember thinking he was like a legend. I mean, which he was, but I was just like, this guy was a cat. And that was a really big deal to me. And I actually don't even know which cat. I should find out which cat.
Oh, we can look that up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you saw the first tour?
Probably around that age, right? Like 5, 6, 7.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're around 7, and I think you were with Joe for a number of years. So
yeah.
Dori, I have problems with this. I don't think children should see the show.
Oh,
really?
The show is very dark.
It's very dark. It's deceptively dark.
When you look at the plot, it is very dark. And I remember I did not see it as a kid. I saw it as an adult. I saw it in 2016. So you can do the math on how old I was. I was an adult, and I remember seeing it going, that's some aggressive dancing at points, and that's pretty strange. And then I really dug into this with this podcast, and now I know a lot of stuff, and it is a very, very, very dark and mysterious and sexual show. And so the more I learn about it, the more I'm like, why are there so many kids seeing this? There's it's teenagers is where you could start getting like, okay, they're going to understand some of the concepts. It's okay at this point. But there's so many children that go see it. And I always wonder now, it just goes over their heads. So I understand.
I think that's the point. That's the point.
I think it that way about like a lot of shows. Like I went to I took my nephews to see Lion King, you know, as their first like Broadway show, and I was sitting there being like, I don't remember Lion King having this much, you know, stuff about like death and existentialism and you know all sorts of things. So I think it's like when you see things as an adult, you think about them differently.
You're also seeing it when you're taking a child. You're seeing it through a different lens.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't think I was with you when you saw the first production of Cats.
Who was?
I don't know. I don't
pass blame. Pass blame to somebody else.
I'm trying to remember because I don't recall being traumatized by the fact that you were seeing it, and I probably would have been.
I will say I think I'm in the minority of that camp because there are a lot of children that go see it. My mom brought my sister. Like it is filled. Like the 2 times I saw it on Broadway, there were a lot of children around. But I also know that like one standard truth of this show is that Demeter was sexually abused by McCavity. And it's like, that's not really a plot line for children that you expect. And so it is just like a very kind of bizarre thing for me to learn more about the plot. And again, that's like all I focus on. I know you wrote an entire documentary did this entire thing on a lot more than that, and I'm sitting here going like, well, let's talk about old Deuteronomy here. But that's kind of an angle that I've always found fascinating. And you know, you've got Victoria's dance, you've got the ball being exactly. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot there. I mean, Tugger's dance is extremely sexual. So it fascinates me when I learn that kids go, and it's common. I mean, it was been around for 41 years, so it makes sense. I would love to kind of go to the documentary because I think that's really where I'd love to hear how you kind of like, you know, how did you tackle this project? How did it come up? And then what did you kind of learn as you went through it?
Yeah, so it came about because during the pandemic, much like, you know, all fellow freelancers, I had everything canceled. I was sitting in my apartment, FaceTiming with friends, you know, trying to figure out what to do with life. Yeah. And my friend, Kristen Blodgett, who is the music supervisor on a lot of Andrew Lloyd Webber shows and tours, was talking about how she was about to get on a plane to go to South Korea to mount the South Korean tour of Cats. And this was June of 2020. And at that point, you know, nobody was like leaving their apartment, let alone going to South Korea, let alone making a musical. And I was just sort of dumbfounded about how that was possible. And, you know, had heard about the success of Phantom being the only large scale English language production, you know, running in the world over there. Realized, there's something about these both being Andrew Lloyd Webber shows. Andrew Lloyd Webber sort of starting to champion theater coming back on the West End. And wrote to him and said, hey, you know, is somebody documenting this, you know, sort of historical resurgence with your shows? And he said, no, you know, be my guest. And I called my mom because she's a Emmy-winning documentarian, and I've never made a documentary. And I said, you know, hey, do you want to work on this together? And we dove in really, really quickly, got some incredible partners on board, and then started making the film.
I love it. Can you tell me a little bit about, like, I mean, you highlighted it right there that you started this process in the middle of like peak COVID, of where no one was doing everything. I mean, I was stuck in Indiana at that time. I mean, we weren't going anywhere. Like, you were trying to avoid people at all costs, and just, you know, at that point, I don't even think we were like wanting to be outside with people. It was just like, you were just trying to avoid people. And you were going into this production that's about to go into theaters, and like, again, singing and a lot of like vocal and dancing. And I mean, in the show, they're on top of each other half the time. So there's a lot of like a lot of uncertainty. When you like, again, kind of started that, what was it like on your side of that, of like the production of having to film and kind of take all those precautions yourself? Like, what was it on at that moment of, like, I love the idea that we're going to document, but you had to take hurdles that you probably hadn't even thought about to even just start this production. Yeah,
perhaps it was naive, but I was just so desperate to get out of the house and make something that my brain really was not focused on, like my personal health journey. Because I was like, oh, I'll be fine. Like, because the part of it was that at the time, Korea was doing better than almost any country in the world. So it was the journey to get there was daunting in the sense that I had to, go get on a plane. But once I got there and got through quarantine, I was actually way safer than in New York. So I think, and on the day that I got to Korea, there were 76 cases in the entire country. So it was like, so minimal. And as we sort of show in the film, there were spikes during the process. But at the time, it was just sort of like, oh, I'd much rather be there.
Yeah, but spikes like 350.
Right. No, it got up to 2,000. Very, very scary.
They had the one guy that like went to church, I think, and in a club or something. There was like one international story from that. I remember at the time, and I think it was covered in the documentary too. Yeah, because it went from there wasn't a lot at all to they did a great job really there in the scheme of things to be able to do that. And I think that's again fascinating. I'd love to hear a little bit, Dori, from you. Like when you heard the idea, well, like what went through your mind?
Well, I think we were all, the whole community, and certainly Sammi and I talked a lot about it. Theater was decimated, we were wiped out, and there were so many people who were unemployed, so many people who just their lives came to a complete halt, and the idea of helping to fight to keep theater alive and to keep theater moving forward and to support the employment of actors and all the people behind the curtain, and also with what Korea was able to do to make theater safe. We felt it was very important to capture that, document that, and share it with the world so that other countries could learn from it and then bring theater back in a safe way so that the world could get back to theater, because theater is so vital in every possible way, just for humanity, for heaven's sake. So it was really a mission for us to do that. And wearing the mom hat, I was completely off the charts, panicked. I was sending my daughter off to Korea in the middle of a global pandemic, but I had to deal with that. But other than that, I think we were both really driven to tell the story and to help bring theater back, and celebrate all the artists that were coming from around the world, and taking great risks to do this.
Yeah, and having talked to a couple of them, it's like they almost didn't believe it was true when they got the call at first. It was like wait, this is actually happening, and then the excitement and a little bit of the fear, but also just like being able to kind of go back to your point, do what they love, and be employed again when a lot of them were on tours and doing stuff, and it abruptly stopped. So I'd love to change gears a little bit though, because I think what I loved about the documentary as someone who spent, again, an immense amount of time thinking about the show is that I got to see and hear a few of the kind of behind the scenes stuff that I'm still waiting to get the Cat's Bible told to me by some of these brilliant people. And you got to document some of that. And so I would love to hear a little bit, and you can talk about fandom too, but this is this group cares about cats. But a little bit about like, what did you learn about those shows? Like, because these clearly weren't, I think for you, Sammi, these weren't things that you weren't like, again, the super passionate, like I know every inch of Cats. And then you get to kind of go and experience this whole thing from start to finish to putting on the show. So like, what was that like, and what kind of surprised you of being able to kind of get that behind the scenes piece?
Yeah, well, Kristen, who I mentioned before we went to Korea, she said to me, anybody who works on Cats within like a few weeks of working on it, you just become indoctrinated. Like you just are become like a member of the cult. Like you're like really obsessed with cats. And I was like, I love cats. I respect cats, Kristen. And she was like, no, you don't understand. Like it's going to go deeper. And I was like, oh, okay. And she was completely right. Like you get into this culture where like everything is about, I mean, first of all, it's such an ensemble piece, and so the culture of everybody sort of working together to tell a story and everybody having their own strength and their own feature, I think is really beautiful. And it sort of works on stage and off stage. But also like, it's nuts. Like it knows that it's nuts and like in the most beautiful way. And I think that that's part of like the spirit of making it and the spirit of creating it. So I mean that in the most complimentary sense of the word. Like I am the biggest Angela Weber fangirl, you know, on the planet. And my Cats fandom is sort of newer than my other ALW fandoms, but yeah.
I love it. I mean, I do think like one thing that I've always thought about the show is the reason that so many people do like it is because there's probably some character you relate to, and it's because this world was built and there's such a group and there's so many of them to the point where, I mean, there's what, 30-ish cats that end up kind of in this production, and you're going to probably find a piece of one or two of them that are you, which is somebody's party trick who was in the 2016 revival, is that they go around and tell people which cat they are. But I'm kind of curious too to hear about, like, as you got to experience that and watch that as almost a spectator, what was that like? Did you kind of sit there and go, wow, I didn't realize the depths of that story? Or is that something, as someone who's in theater, I mean, as a non-theater person, that's my kind of fascination with the show, is I did not realize the depths of that story. I thought, I was like, someone's going to sing Memory to me and I don't know what else I'm going to watch. But you know how productions are put together and what it takes to build a show and all the intricacies of it. So like, how much of that was a surprise to you, or was something that was new to you? And what was that like, again, being in that moment there with them, experience like?
I think that I gained such a deep understanding of, or a deeper understanding of the story day by day. And like you said, that sort of appreciation grew over time, because I think you can meet it on the level of coming to it and saying, oh, wow, the dance is beautiful. And the costumes are really cool. And I love Memory. But you can also sort of meet it on a sort of deeper dramaturgical, poetic level, because it comes from poetry, after all. And I think that for me, it was a little bit of like, what's the right word? Like living vicariously through the folks who became my friends in the company. Because when you watch people rehearse this dance day in and day out, it is like so intoxicating that I just wanted to do it. Like, I was just like, I'm not a dancer. Like, I have no skill set, but I would just sit in the corner of the room with my camera being like, I just want to start dancing. Like, you can't like help yourself because it's so athletic. It's so like exciting. And then once they get in costume, you're like, I want to be a cat. And then I was very lucky. My friend Caitlin, who was one of the swings, she agreed to paint my face. And so I became Bombi for an evening. And the lovely wig folks in Seoul, they put a wig on me. And it was like the most exciting night of my life. But
so you got to, did you just go like to the crowd and watch that day, or were you still back?
No, I wasn't allowed to do anything because they have really strict rules, which I understand, about how like the makeup can be seen. You probably know this better than I do. Like how the makeup can be seen in photos, like it because it has to be approved to make sure that it is what the traditional look is supposed to be. And so I was told I couldn't even post the photos of myself as Bombi. I've now been told I can post them, but I was just like, it would be a little bit weird to be like, oh, by the way, here I am as a cat 2 years ago.
There's time.
Okay.
Halloween, Purim. Hey, there's plenty of times you can do it.
When this episode comes out, I'll post that picture.
We can share it with
it's a really great job. Caitlin killed it.
I love that you've been sitting on this photo for 2 years now, and it's ready to come to life here, which is great. I would love to hear a little bit about, again, kind of a little bit of fascination was pairing the two shows. And how you weave that back and forth, because that was such an interesting piece. And I will still admit that I have not seen Phantom, which I think surprises a lot of people. I've never seen it anywhere in the world, any production. It's just one of those
All
things
right.
that, yeah, I know, right? And I should, because I'm in New York and it's still here and easy to go see. But that was kind of interesting for me because I just didn't know, like, I know the basics of the story, but I didn't know nearly as much as I was expecting. So watching, and I know way too much about cats. So watching the two kind of together was really fun for me to see. But how was weaving that story together?
Well, there are probably two answers to that question. It's the two different stories, just given what was going on in the world and with COVID, and the two different experiences that the companies were having during COVID. There's that side of things, and then there's also, you know, two completely different shows with that require different kinds of performers and performances and the stories behind them. But I think. Because they were with cats, they were putting the show together, and Phantom was already up and running. Mm-hmm. So it was an opportunity to kind of capture two different, where two different shows were in this process at that time, and what the companies were consequently going through. And also they were in different locations, and in going to the city that had the most terrific outbreak in all of Korea, and kind of be the event that rebirthed that city after COVID. That was a big deal. And so obviously that was an exciting opportunity to be with them and to see what it meant to the citizens of the town to, be out and about again and to be together in a community setting and experiencing theater. So it gave us more storytelling, and two different worlds also, behind the curtain that were fascinating to capture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was cool to watch. Just again, having, for me, like as a spectator, I'm sure there's people that are much more well versed in the entire Andrew Lloyd Webber world. But to get to see two, again, vastly different things weave in and out, but with this kind of same storytelling, which was beautifully done. So it's kind of very cool. And, again, as someone who was watching one side of it a lot more of it, like, what else are you going to teach me that I don't know about cats at this point? Because you're getting all this behind the scenes, like you're literally filming what I've been dying to see for 3+ years, probably more than that now, like 5 or 6 years, where I'm like, I want to just see the explanation of the story for those couple days. You were there in that moment.
Well, come over sometime because we have 90 hours of footage. So there's a lot of behind the scenes that didn't make it in, because we were so focused on the COVID narrative. But
I'm going to take you up on that. If you have the recording of what's called the Cat's Bible, then I would love to watch it.
What does that mean? Like the
So the explanation I was given by a couple of different people, and again, it's different every cast to cast, so it's like every version gets told a story, but there's generally
that thing.
Here's the story, like here's the background, here's this, and then there's each character, their 3 words, and kind of what their backstory is, and then there's a lot of missing pieces, and that's what my podcast has kind of dove into more than anything, is looking at, like, is Victoria Grizabella's daughter or not, which is like not answered. There's not a definitive answer, but you could say maybe, not, and it just depends on how the cast plays it. But there is a version that's given by a couple different people depending on the production that will say, you sit in a circle. It's always been explained to me, it feels like camp. It's like you sit in a circle and everyone gets told the story, and then it's like, here's Tugger, here's Skimbleshanks, and it's like each person and their 3 words and their whole thing. And so I've been dying to know, because I have all the theories in between, and I'm like, somebody can answer these questions to us. And there's like an entire website of fandom for Wikipedia page for cats that digs into all of those things. Some are answered, some are not. But there's a group of people that could definitively answer some of this, or say there isn't an answer to that.
Well, I mean, Chrissy Cartwright would definitely.
Chrissy's definitely the main one who's done this most. There's a couple other, just on the tours and other productions where someone has come in and kind of filled in the blanks, and then you get the regional dinner theaters and stuff where they get a abbreviated version, but there
Right,
is a
right.
version for most of this.
Amazing. Yes, they did do that. I didn't know that's what it was called, but yeah, that
Okay, so
did happen.
you've got
I
footage.
don't know that we filmed the whole thing though,
Ooh.
because we weren't. I can check.
I would love to know. I mean, it wasn't going to fit your narrative the whole way through, so I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't film the whole thing.
We were like, and on page 72.
I know, right? It's supposed to be
Yeah.
it's supposed to be like a couple days, so that's why
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it could be. It's probably a lot, but yeah, no. Andrew Lloyd Webber doesn't respond to me, and I haven't been able to get in touch with Chris either. So one day, this is what we're going to talk about after we stop recording.
Yeah, I'm here for it. I have a lot of contacts on that cat store, so let me know.
We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back for more of The Wrong Cat Died. I want to change gears. I want to talk a little bit about the 2019 movie, because that is what, like, there was a little bit of a peak of like Cats was everywhere pre-pandemic in Christmas of 2019,
Right.
and then all of a sudden now you're kind of doing this documentary after, and there's still kind of some legs there. Did you see the 2019 movie, and
Oh, yeah.
what was your experience with it?
I mean, I think like everybody, we were just like, I don't feel bad saying it because I feel like most people involved would say it, that, it was crazy. But I like enjoyed the experience of going to see it nonetheless.
Yeah, Andrew Lloyd Webber has distanced himself from it closely, so it's there's a lot of group that does not want to talk about it anymore. So it is kind of a fascinating thing to see, because it's like I didn't think it was great, but I didn't think it was that bad. I thought it was a lot of interesting decisions, but more on the editing side than the actual movie side. But it was a polarizing experience seeing it, and I did see it with Alan, our wonderful Alan Seals. So we saw it together in a very unique viewing, and it was an experience. So it's just one of those things that it kind of sparked a lot with this show, and then it continued, and then you kind of like, it abruptly stops. It was on tour in the U.S., and then the South Korean tour kind of picked back up, and it was one of the only things running at the time. So it did have this kind of like natural progression, and then it went back on tour, as when the U.S. tour started picking back up.
Well, I think a lot of what we, the relationship between the film and our doc was actually something that we thought about, in the sense that like there was a lot of hype, whatever you want to make of it, right before the pandemic, as you said, about the property. And for us, the stage show was something that we wanted to like remind everybody of its smashing success all around the world for decades, and celebrate that in this moment where it was one of the two shows that was sort of leading the way in this specific, comeback. So that was part of our thinking, as we decided.
doing it a service to bring it back to its actual glory.
Yeah, well, it was a giant missed opportunity as far as I was concerned. It wasn't really the Cats that I had loved beforehand. And so I think it was really, we felt good about bringing everyone back to focusing on the show.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a different story. I mean, they told it through Victoria's eyes, and they rearranged some stuff and added some stuff, and so it was nice to see the true stage production version, like the one that I guess that especially now or more of the people that have seen it more recently, it's got to see that version. Like it was still the revival's version, right? I mean, it was that production, which again was the one I was used to.
But I will say, I thought Robbie Fairchild slayed that movie. Like I thought his performance was extraordinary.
Totally. There were definitely
I agree with you.
Some people that were amazing. There were some people that I still to this day think there were some dancers in there that did incredible dancing that you just didn't get to see because of the way it was cut. And it bothered me because I'm like, these are some of the most talented dancers in the world that had in this movie. And it's like you get to see them, and then all of a sudden they're like in the top right corner of your screen and in the bottom left corner of your screen, and they're over here, and I like couldn't follow what they were doing. Versus, there is some beauty into a pro shot of a stage production where it is a lot more of focus your attention on the stage, and that's something that was the biggest miss for me in that movie, or one of the bigger misses for me. I do want to, Sammi, I want to hear from you a little bit, because you got to experience this, you got to be Bombalurina, you got to dive in. Like, what was the part of the show, like what is your favorite part of the show? What related to you as you got to really ingrain yourself into Cats a lot more?
I loved the Jellicle Ball because the athleticism of it, the like marathon of it, is just incredible to watch. And they let me watch the show from backstage quite a lot, and to see the dancers like run on and off in the different parts of it, and then at the very end of it, everybody just comes and like collapses on the floor, and is just like panting for 5 minutes. It's quite amazing to watch people like do something that's like truly an athletic feat every night. So that would be my favorite.
Yeah, I think you don't fully like truly appreciate it when you watch it from the crowd. I think because there's so much going on, and then now that I've talked to so many cast members, like it's 13 minutes of nonstop dancing.
Yeah,
and it is. I mean, some of them are tumbling, and they're doing lifts, and they're doing all this stuff, and it's like it's one of the most injured shows, I think. You would know this more than me, but it seems like it's one of the shows that has the most injuries, because of the like how physical it is to do those dances every night or 8 times a week, is a wild one. So I do think it's fun. I think that's such an interesting piece to it. It also is a piece that's kind of strange though, because it's an orgy at its core. And so it's like, it is another one where it's like, oh, now that you learn about that, it's like, oh, all right, very interesting. Okay, not what I was expecting for a cat show. But I think that's it. That's always one that kind of gets there. I think that, and then there's just a couple other like solo pieces that usually get the spot, like some of the tap dancing and some of the other stuff.
Mm-hmm. And Victoria's solo and it was also very interesting for me because on perhaps you've heard this from other cast members on this tour, but see, I just said other cast members as if I am a cast member. Yeah. I'm like so indoctrinated. But on that tour, our Victoria and our Tugger started dating pretty early on in this process, and they're like, it's like 2.5 years later or something like that, 2 years later, they're still together. She just moved to London. They're like living together in London. And then I was like remarking on that to Kristen, and she was like, oh no, it's always the Victoria and the Tugger. And I said, okay.
Oh, but also the GMs from the show met on Cats.
That's true.
Yeah.
Who did?
Gareth and Paul, who were the GMs, they met when they were doing Cats like 10, 15 years ago. Gareth was...
I don't remember. Rum Tum Tiger, I think.
No. Paul was
Rum Tum Tiger. That's right.
Gareth. Oh no, Gareth was Mungo Jerry. And we have some great photos of him as Mungo Jerry.
So what's so interesting about that is, yes, there's a lot of like the show kind of would bring that together, like the Victorian Tugger, and there's some other ones, but a lot of the rumor mills, when you like really dig into them, and have answered a lot of them with cast members, are because of like off stage relationships, not necessarily just dating, but friendships and other stuff, where they have great chemistry, but their cats probably shouldn't, or like they're not supposed to. And so a lot of these rumor mills start because, and one of them that early on we were able to solve is there was a big rumor between Tyler Haynes and Jeremy Davis, I think. And it's like, it was Skimble and Tugger, and they're not necessarily supposed to be these like great friends. They're supposed to, like, Tugger's supposed to bother Skimble and all this stuff. And it was early on that they kind of had this thing that they played off of each other, and the crowds, especially the super fans, like the junkyard, and there's like these fans that go and watch like one cat at a time. started to notice these things. And it's like, yeah, these two guys are messing with you. And it's like a lot of these rumors come from that. And you find out it's like, oh, it's just because they were roommates or they were like really good friends in another show.
Oh, that's so
and their
funny.
cats aren't supposed to be. So I love hearing that there is like that you had that experience. And it was one that's probably Victoria and Tugger probably don't interact all that much on stage. I don't think nearly as much. There's a, but it does feel like a common one that you would see. But what's fun is when it's an uncommon one and you start seeing those relationships because they definitely happen.
That's so interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that. And yeah, I mean, it was really fascinating being with the Cats company, going back and forth from the Cats company and the Phantom company, because the Phantom company is like the median age is like, 15 years older than the Cats company. So it just is like a totally different, vibe and world.
Yeah, Cats definitely felt like camp. Like the whole thing felt like camp. It was
felt
like
like
they were
camp.
stuck together.
Yeah.
They were enjoying their lives together. I mean, I think there's some very scenes of like they're yelling out the windows to each other and they were in isolation, and it was like they had a blast. All things considering, it seemed like they really enjoyed themselves. And that's what seems like, I mean, the amount of cast members I've interviewed, it's so fun to hear like they almost kind of like they still are all in touch. Like so many of them are still friends and hang out and do all this stuff. So it's like it's such, I think, a show that you're almost forced to be really close with your castmates just because of the nature of the show. You're like literally climbing on top of each other in unitards. And so it's like they become like lifelong friends. And it's cool to hear that you got to experience that, even not in the cast, but just being in the aura of it. You kind of almost got brought right into it and got to, get, like you said, I think you said indoctrinated into it. It was, you're part of the family.
They were very generous to me, so I'm grateful for that.
Let's do a little rapid fire about the show, and then we'll get into the $1 million question. So you both have to answer. I would love to hear a couple of things. So one is if you were in the show, who would you want to play?
Do we have to answer that understanding our athletic limitations?
Nope, because I can't sing or dance or any of these, and I like to think about this all the time. So you can suspend any belief of if it's in your vocal range or anything. It doesn't, there's can be male, female, just which track, if you could go on and do one day and you were blessed with the skills to do it, which one would you want to do?
I would go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I'd just say Demeter because I like the costume.
You already get to be Bomb, so might as well be your sister.
Exactly. Yeah.
I would really go for it, and I'm going to go for something that is not in any way true to my own personal character, just because I think it would be a hoot. I'd go for Rum Tum Tiger. Rum Tum Tiger. Excuse me.
It's so interesting that you say that because it's fun to hear from the cast members, because I ask this question to almost everybody, and it's like some of them like to do exactly that. It's like, who is not my personality, and I get to go out and like truly act, like be in a moment that's not my aura. And others are like, no, this is me. I want to go own it. Here's who I am. Like, let me be me and go do the best version of it. So it is interesting to see like how people choose that question.
Well, it's the rock star cat, and a great song, and I think it would be a blast to do if I had the talent to do it.
Yeah, it's probably the only one too where you get a little bit of liberty. Like you get a little bit of freedom to ad-lib a little, not ad-lib like lyrics, but you can kind of go a little off script on your dance. So it's probably one of the only ones that you can kind of do that.
Yeah.
Who are your favorite and least favorite characters?
Favorite? I like Monk a lot. I just like how he controls things.
You're a storyteller. You got the storyteller. I like it.
Yeah. And then I'm really not a Gus fan.
Not a Gus fan. Oh, this is not going to lend well for the last question.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I just also in the, again, here it is with the R, in the tour that I was observing, they kept what is the number?
Was it Bill Bailey?
No, it's the
Growl Tiger.
Yep, Growl Tiger, and that makes him a bit unlikable.
It's definitely more of a showman when you do that, because do they do the opera piece kind of with that whole?
Well, it's also like a bit offensive. Like, I mean, he's a bit. I mean, not a bit. It's very offensive. Like his character is behind the times. And I think that was the writer's point, was that he's behind the times. But I'm a little bit like, dude, catch up.
Yeah, there's a couple. I mean, it's gonna be going for 40 years, so there's a couple that have been renamed, and there's been a few cats canceled. So that is one. There's a couple other that we don't need to get into that have been correctly updated for modern times. Dori, what about you?
I can tell you, I'm not a McCavity fan. I just get very
the villain.
I get very emotional. Like very upset about McCavity.
What about favorite?
My favorite, that's really difficult. It just would be fun to be Bustopher Jones. Just eat whatever you wanted all the time.
Just hangs out. Just spends the money. The only challenge with that is that this isn't the who would you want to play, because Bustopher Jones also is usually Gus, so it's like you can't just be Bustopher Jones. But favorite cat, yeah. I mean, again, he also has a backstory, because his whole thing is he just eats a lot and goes to gentlemen's clubs. It's basically his whole story.
Take that back then.
But I will say, I do think that the term gentlemen's clubs could be used in very different ways. So it could just be like going to have a cigar and a drink.
Yeah, I think that's what he means, right?
I don't know. I used to think that was originally the intent. I was like, oh, it's all so wholesome. He just goes to hang out with his buddies, and then it's like, no. Then you learn about all the other stuff, and I'm like, maybe not. Maybe this is a lot more R-rated and X-rated than I thought here. But it's more fun to me, it's funnier if you think about Bustopher Jones in the other sense. Just given his personality of like the way he lives. I also think he funds McCavity's crime. That's my other theory.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was just going for something really simple and
she just likes to eat.
I like him. No, he's great. What is your favorite song in the show?
I like listen to the Jellicle Ball when I'm like on the treadmill. It's like the most invigorating thing ever. I think it's just like a masterpiece.
I love that too. I really do.
It is. It's great. I do think like that. My answer to this has changed so many times, which I think is what's cool about it, because it's like there's moments where I'm like, this is my favorite one, and I'm like, no, it's McCavity right now. But the ball is classic. Okay, my last one before we get to the $1 million question. Which cat do you think would be the best director of a documentary? Who do you think would put together the best show?
That's so funny. Oh my gosh. Well, maybe Skimbleshanks.
Oh, that's a good answer.
Because, very organized and keeps everything on schedule, right?
That's an excellent theory. Yeah.
I had a different one.
I would say Mungo, Jerry, and Rumpelteazer together, because they're very sneaky and crafty, and you have to be very resourceful when you're making things like this, because you have to think creatively.
I like this. So I think we've answered different parts of this process, because mine's going to be Monkish Trap, which is a storyteller.
Right.
So I think that maybe we need all four, I guess. We need the twins to kind of like, or not the twins, they're brother sister, but there's actual twins in the show. But you need Mungo, Jerry, and Rumpelteazer to like film and capture the moment and get everything behind the scenes. You need Skimbleshanks to keep you on time and on production and on budget and everything else that's going to go involved with it. It's going to be very organized. And then you need someone to tell the story and narrate, and that's going to be Monkish Trap. So I think we got them all. You just gotta
keep a team. It's
and then
a team.
Then Mistopheles is doing your special effects, but that's more movie, not for documentary.
That's really good. That's good.
I like that.
Okay. Final question is: this whole podcast centers around the theory that I don't think Grizabella is the right Jellicle choice. So I'd love to hear: are you going to defend Grizabella, and why? And if not, who are you sending and why?
Sam, take it away.
I'm ready. I prepped. because I was like, I want to have an answer that's maybe original. Like perhaps this answer has come in before, but I was like, I just don't want to like have an answer that everybody says. So my answer is actually Baby Grizz, which some people don't know who Baby Grizz is, but it was one of the things I learned in my time on Cats, which is that most actors playing Grizabella, if they're not like super celebs, they will dance in the opening number, and they wear a costume that is like referred to as Baby Grizz, but there aren't really set rules about who that cat is, and whether it's like a younger version of Grizabella or like an entirely different cat. So my theory is that like that version of the cat is everything that the Jellicle choice should be, and she should have gone up to the heavy side.
Okay, so I got some follow-up questions. I love it.
Sure,
It's a very original answer. I love it.
Okay, yeah.
It's also
I don't think it's the best answer. I just wanted it to be original.
Well, the most common is Gus, and if it's not your favorite character, then
sure.
that helps. That helps not making that argument for him. So I'd love to hear your thought on what is the criteria to go to the heaviside layer, because you said that that Baby Grizz kind of embodies that, but what is that answer for you, or I guess for old dude?
Well, the only way we know really is by his choice of Grizz in the musical, right? So I guess by that standard, it would be someone who is worthy of redemption, and is worthy of a second chance. And Baby Grizz disappears, so we never know what her potential is. So therefore, we should give her that second chance.
I like it. I do like it. It's not Grizz, so it's anything that's not regular Grizabella is a positive in my book. I do think that there's a lot of people don't know about Baby Grizz. To your point, it's I don't think I actually saw a Baby Grizz in the 2 productions I've seen, but I do know about it. It's also, if I'm ever writing, I've tried to write Cats too many times, but I think that there could be a like Ghost of Catsmith's Past type of story, and it centers around Baby Grizz coming back.
That's
down
good.
to see what she's caused by her choice. For anybody that wants to write that story, I don't know enough about theater or writing a musical or anything like that to do this. But it's interesting because like the one thing that is challenging with any of the younger cats, which is what Baby Grizz falls into, is that like, have they lived enough life to be the choice? And that's one of the things that like a lot of people always skew towards the older cats, is for that reason.
That makes sense.
But I'm here for anybody that's not Grizabella. So
do you have you come to a conclusion, having spent a lot of time thinking about this?
I have a couple different thoughts on it. I have what started this podcast, which was the humorous thought, which was it's a bizarre X factor, because I did see Leona Lewis the first time, and so I saw who's going to be that choice, which to me is they put together a lot of groups in that show, and they don't actually win, but they're the ones that become the most famous, like One Direction and Fifth Harmony. So I wanted Tugger and Mistopheles together. That was what started this whole thing. That was my answer. I think if you argue old Deuteronomy's case of like, if I'm making a choice next year or multiple years, because same way to your point, we get 1 year and 1 view, is who's most worthy or deserving or most need. And I think that choice is usually Gus. I think there's an argument you can make that it could be old Deuteronomy's time, but is he eligible? You never know. Like, is he killing himself? So I don't think there's an answer. I do think that that's some of the beauty of it. I've heard some other really great examples. Most of them, again, skew to the older cats. But I think the biggest thing you have to decide first is what is the criteria. And this is things that I don't think most people think about, because when you stage the show, or if you're Chrissy, you're thinking about just the one night that has an answer for you. So no one's thinking about next year or 2 years ago or what was last year. Like I had a cast member recently who thinks that Victoria was last year's, and that's why they're coming back. And so if that's the case, then what was old Victoria's criteria to go last year? So that's the part that I think is unanswered. I think what becomes really interesting if you think about this from like a like if you suspend the storytelling of this being a musical and go into like this is a world and almost a cult that was set up, how do they decide their sacrifice every year as a cult leader? And that becomes hard. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. This was a joke that started purely because I made a joke when the trailer came out, and now I've spent 80 plus episodes trying to actually think through this in a more thoughtful manner. Because my original answer was Tugger Mephistophelies. But Dori, you're not getting off the hook though. I want to hear your.
Oh, I have a point of view. I am going to argue that Grizabella was the right cat to die, and she has been just maligned because of her looks, because she's haggard and she's older, and she's just written off. And I think that it's really important for her to be the chosen one, for people to look at her through a different lens, and to realize that they've shunned somebody because of their appearance. And I think it's a very powerful statement for the world we're living in, and people who are disenfranchised and pushed aside because of the way they look. And so I think that was an excellent choice, and I applaud Old Deuteronomy.
I am not going to argue against you today, because
Solid.
I don't disagree with that piece of it. Of like, I do think that there's more to it though, which is where my arguments stem from. Is that not that she's being the redemption story that's clearly there, and that she's being reaccepted into the family? I firmly believe she's next year's choice. That's, I think, my biggest take with Grizabella, is I want her to have her time with her family. Give her her acceptance back. Give her a year. Send her next year. So that's where I'm really at with this show. But I don't get to stage it, and I also think for 41 years this has been a wildly successful selling show. So I don't think it needs to be rewritten, but it's not going to stop me from arguing with everybody about why it should be rewritten. All right, the most important question: how can people stay in touch with you? How can they see the documentary? Like, let's plug away here.
The film is on Apple TV. They can see it there. And we both have, it's also on Broadway On Demand. They can see it there. It's also on, is it dramaticforces.com?
Dramaticforces.com, yes.
Which tells you how to stay in touch with Dori. And then I have a website, sammicannold.com, and it has my contact info on there as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being amazing guests. And I'm excited that this will, if nothing else, spark the world to see your Bombalurina. And hopefully people will get to enjoy your amazing film, which I thoroughly enjoyed.
Well, thank you.
Been looking for an excuse to get to share the photo, so I'm really thrilled and grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
and grateful to be here.
Thank you for this fabulous podcast, because it's so good and it's so much fun, and it gives us a lot to think about.
That's what I'm here for. The hard-hitting facts. All the Broadway podcast networks, very thoughtful and cerebral shows, and here I am arguing with people about Grizabella. So that's what I'm bringing to the table.
I love it. It's essential listening.
Well, thank you both for being here, and thanks everyone else for listening to this episode of The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and now TikTok at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website, thewrongcatdied.com.